Hello, everybody. Good evening. I am James Detroit. A long day on the road. If you didn't get a chance to check out the video that I made this morning, right after the workout, I encourage you to check that out. I did at that time tell you if I had to bet on how things were going to transpire today, I would not put my money on Mike Pence exercising his full constitutional opportunities. And when I look back on the history of our nation and I take a look at Thomas Jefferson as vice president and disqualifying some electoral votes, which made him the president. And I think, okay, I wonder exactly why. And I've never really looked into exactly why he chose not to acknowledge. And I'm wondering a few things today. So I'm listening to the news because a few of you called me and said, "Hey, they're storming the Capitol. They're breaking windows. They're going to burn this thing down." And I'm like, "Oh, wow!" So in order to listen to the news, I got to get off the phone. So I got off the phone. I turned it to Fox News on Sirius XM radio, and I just I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And number one, it is not a time. And is there a time for violence to defend yourself? Certainly. And I think to defend the constitutional republic, yes. When we go to war, we've been in forever war in Afghanistan and in Iraq, and those troops are about to be increased. It looks like, but we have a war in this country. We have a war on literacy. We have a war on poverty. We have a war on drugs, and all the times the government gets into those spaces, the government makes it worse. We have a war on crime. So I'm looking at this and I'm listening to everybody. First of all, they're telling almost everybody on Fox News is saying that the president incited this mob to storm the Capitol. And I had a couple of you call me and say, I listened to every word. He started speaking at 12 o'clock, finished at 1:15, never once said it. You know, it's interesting to me that because I consider going to Washington, and I was reading about last weekend, I was reading about the different planned Trump support marches and where they were going to start out at and some of the details. And they were all going to end at the House, in Congress. They were all going to end in front of the United States Congress. And then President Trump was going to speak, and so they set all that up on the mall. And I got to tell you, that's a lot of people. I don't know what they're projecting as far as people showing up. That's a lot of people. So in that, and I know that the leader of the Proud Boys, what the media will tell you is that the Proud Boys is a white supremacist and alt-right radical group, and yet the leader, who is obviously not a white guy. So a lot of these things I keep questioning, why do they say what they say? And so back to today, they tell me as I'm driving along, doesn't matter what side of the quote unquote aisle you're on, whether it's Dana Perino, Juan Williams, it doesn't matter. Every single person was saying that Trump incited the mob to go storm the Capitol, that this was just a horrible day, that all of these Trump supporters are hurting the cause, and this is a disgrace for the Republican Party. And I just kept thinking, I have a hard time believing it. I know a number of people that are in Washington right now, and I'm like, man, I just can't. And I haven't had a chance to see anything other than a couple of pictures as I walked in the house, jumped in the shower, and then jumped on here. And those pictures are pretty impressive. I mean, as far as people. And I did see a couple of the photos of some dummy that had gotten to the Senate floor, and then a few other people with some rebel flags. And I will just say that's not me, and I don't think it's the vast majority. The couple other pictures that I did happen to see, and again, I stood in front of the TV for about 15, 30 seconds or whatever it was. But a Q, whatever this QAnon is. And I have seen some of their videos and I've shared them with some people. And I would say that we don't know who broke the windows, pushed down the doors. But one of the other things I was reading this past weekend was how the National Guard had already been on the ready for all of these, expected protests and the potential for clashes between Antifa, Black Lives Matter, or any left-leaning groups against any right-leaning groups. And I did hear while I was driving, Muriel Bowser, the Washington mayor, talk about how she had already set up with all of these outlying police organizations, law enforcement for additional support. And I think to myself, because the leader of the Proud Boys was arrested leaving his hotel or getting to the airport or whatever, based on some videos like this saying, yeah, they burned, they hopped the fence, they grabbed a flag from a church and they burned it, Black Lives Matter. And when they arrested him, he happened to have not a weapon on him, but he happened to have a magazine from a firearm. And I don't even know if it was actually had any ammunition in it or if he just had the magazine. I don't know the details on that. But that's how strict it is in Washington, D.C. You can't even take gun stuff, a knife, mace. You can't have nothing there. Only law enforcement and the criminals are going to have guns in Washington, D.C. And it's not a place I want to go. It's not a place I want to go. The one thing I will say, we're an open carry state, and you can conceal carry as long as you go through the process here in the state of Michigan. And I'm glad. That's probably one of the reasons why I stay. And I'm listening to, I'm hearing all of the media talk about mostly peaceful protests all summer long, when hundreds of cop cars are burned, city blocks are burned, people are shot and killed in the street in all of these cities across it, and they keep telling us that it's peaceful protests. They have a right to be out there. It's mostly peaceful protests. And I know that in Washington, D.C., these people aren't armed. I mean, I'm not aware of any. And then you'd say, well, they've got their flags. They've got their flags at the ready. Okay, what does that mean? And a couple of people had, grabbed a shield or the thing I saw about breaking the window had a 2x4. Okay. So one side of the media wants to tell you that the guy in Wisconsin that was grabbing a knife wasn't armed. He was an unarmed man. And yet now you're telling me that these people are armed. Here's my question. How did an unarmed group, and in every large group, people take on a persona, something beyond themselves. But we are not responsible for the entire group. And anybody that breaks windows and breaks down doors and pushes past the police right there, yeah, you're breaking the law. And we can see your face. And I'm sure because of all of this surveillance state that we live in, they're going to find you. They're going to figure out who you are. But it was such a small number of people. And who are they? Who are those people? Because we don't know. We don't know what their real motives are. My guess is anarchy in some way. But how did they get by? How did they press through what I was reading this weekend about all of the support? Muriel Bowser even said on television, or, she was on TV, it was on Fox, I was listening to it on the radio, talking about how she had all of these other law enforcement groups that were on the ready to come in and support. Where were they? Is it possible? Is it possible this was planned? I'm just asking a question. Because I'm listening to this narrative, and this is on Fox, and I've said it for years. You can only trust about half of the people on Fox to tell you the truth.
But I'm listening to this narrative about how this is the worst day. It's a GOP coup. The GOP's the, the GOP is really close to dead because uh, that party, which was doing great things for a long time, which is the party of Lincoln and the party of Reagan, the party of Eisenhower, it's in trouble, and it should be because of the never Trumpers. You didn't like it. You didn't like the fact that we, the American people, elected him in 2016. And it really looks like, with all the mounting evidence, that we probably did again in 2020. The ability for us to be able to look at these things, because, if you go back in The Man from Laramie with Jimmy Stewart, if you go back and look at The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, many Westerns, in The Princess Bride, they're going to capture Princess Buttercup and, kill her and then send back the horse to suggest that people from Gilder killed her. And so they faked, in the old Westerns, they would regularly fake Indian uprisings. And who decided to cross that police line, and what police decided to stand down, or where was the reinforcements? I just wonder if this was planned. And again, you're going to say, well, there he is again. He's a conspiracy theorist. I'm trying to figure this out. I'm trying to figure out, connect the dots. And the other thing is this. Unfortunately, a woman was shot, obviously, inside the congressional halls by somebody with a gun in there. And hopefully she makes it. The tear gas that was dispersed. This was truly a mostly peaceful protest, except for a handful of people that overtook an undersized and a willing to stand down, near as I can tell. And again, I haven't watched it. I haven't watched all the pictures, so I really don't know, but I'm listening to it on the radio, and those of you who called me and told me all of the stuff that was happening, I'm like, it doesn't add up. Something doesn't add up here. And so I appreciate you tuning in and listening to my opinions on things, but also remember the facts and what our historical precedent has allowed us to be able to happen. And pay attention to what Mark Levin has been talking about. And let's pay attention to each of these states that are saying, hey, we need to take a look at this. Because as much as these states that I've mentioned before have failed us, the state legislators, they're starting to come around to, wow, maybe we did miss something. And I'm just going to say it one more time. Dr. Linda Lee Tarver, if you have not gotten a chance to watch her testimony, she was the star of the testimonies in front of the Michigan legislator last month. Check her out. She makes some very, very good points. And to her point, overall point, how do we certify an election when 70% has not been reconciled? And that is in the city of Detroit. But she goes on to talk about Pontiac and Flint, the city centers. And I think we have a lot of challenges ahead of us. I really do. So I hope you have a great night tonight. And I do hope you continue to pray for the people that are working diligently to save our constitutional republic. I know I will. I'm James Detroit. And for now, I'm out.